Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Being Unapologetically Authentic, where we have guest Kellina Powell. Kalina is a young entrepreneur who loves to help people with their personal growth and educate others about the deaf community. Little do people know that Kalina is actually a hard of hearing person, and she became deaf at the age of 4. She recently graduated with a psychology degree and is now starting her own online coaching business while finishing working on her book. And so I am so grateful to have Kalina on today, and let's get started. Kalina, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to meet you, and your bio is absolutely impressive. And so I'd love for you to share with the community today a little bit about you.
Thank you so much for having me so much for being here, Jen. I'm super excited. So honestly, so Jen mentioned who I am. I am a big deaf advocacy for the deaf community in terms of teaching people how to be inclusive for the deaf community. That's because, I am a deaf person. And you guys may notice, like, oh my God, like, Kalina deaf? How is she communicating with the hand community? I actually went to 2 different schools. I went to a deaf school and a hearing school. So I was able to connect very well with 2 communities, which is cool. But at the same time, it's a little bit of a challenge. And I also do have a book coming up, a book about me being deaf in the hearing community. And, yes, I do have my coaching business. I help people specialize in self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. So I help with that just because I have experienced those in my life when I became deaf. So that's a little bit about me.
That is such an interesting background. So I'd love for you to go into, what caught my attention was what you had said before with regards to going into the 2 different schools and the challenges that you had experienced, right? And so could you share with us, are you comfortable sharing with us a bit about the challenges that you experienced? And, we can kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always open. I'm open book. Honestly, I'm open book. Ask me anything. I'm open to talk about it.
Great.
I would say it was very challenging at first because I thought something was wrong with me, and I thought, as a 5 years old going to school, don't know what's going on, going to 2 different schools. You're like, am I stupid? Am I like, and I was just so confused. And because it was my personality was so different with 2 different schools, so I didn't know like how to fit. Who am I? Like I was just so confused with myself alone, being people without having family there. And being a deaf school was very accommodating. I learned a lot more about myself. I learned a lot of ways to communicate with different deaf people because there's people who are deaf who don't have hearing aids, but they rely on lip reading or
Mm.
sign language. I was able to learn about that. But then when I went to the hearing school, I didn't learn any of that. So what happened is I was able to learn how to communicate by my deaf school and bring it to my hearing school. And it was very a lot challenging because a lot of teachers didn't know how to accommodate me at all. Like they were so clueless, they were so lost, and they were like, "Oh my God!" And because I'm so young, so I don't know what to say
Yeah.
or, And then
Right.
so there's very few teachers that would not accommodate at all. They would just throw me underneath the boat, I would say, or the
Right.
bus.
Right.
And it was not easy because I remember my principal put me in a different room, a classroom where I'm not supposed to be in there. And I went home and I told my mom about it. She's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, just because like you're deaf doesn't mean you're different from anybody else.
Right.
Like, you're
Right.
still a normal person."
Right.
Um, so that was always an issue with the hearing school, but the deaf school not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, I stopped going to the deaf school at grade 2? Yeah, in grade 2, I stopped going there because it was far, and it was very hard to tribute because my mom was a young mom,
Mm-hmm.
going to college, getting everything done, to 2 schools at the same time in college was a lot of work. So,
Yeah.
I my mom said, "You know what? No more deaf school for you. You're gonna go to the hand school because it's a lot convenient for me, and I do want you to improve your communication skills with the hand community because when you get older, you need to learn how to be independent
Mm-hmm.
without having to rely on, sign language, just lip reading. I have to actually learn how to listen."
Yeah.
And so that yeah, so being in high school full time after that was really, really challenging because, I wake up in the morning, I was so happy going to my deaf school, but then since my mom told me, I literally cried my
Oh,
butt off because I was not going to the deaf school anymore. And going to deaf school full time is very not nice. I would say I would bully a lot more because I was deaf full time, and students didn't know who I was, and they thought I was the new girl. And so yeah, I definitely overcome the bullying. You know, thanks to my best friends actually. They're the one that helped me fought the bully back.
I love
Um,
that. So how did you overcome the bullying? How did
it
you
was
overcome the bullying, Kalina? Sorry, I don't know if you can,
it,
yeah. I don't know if it's my technology or whatever, so I apologize for repeating.
it's okay. How I overcome the bullying, honestly, I had the right friends that was around me. They always want what's best for me, I would say, and they wanted me to be involved. So it's really how who you friend with and your environment is very important too.
Mhm.
And I would say my friends and I literally bullied the bully back. It's a little bit, sometimes you have to bully them back just so that they know, like, hey, like what you're doing is wrong. You know that? Like, I'm gonna bully you back then if you like that.
Mhm.
So I actually did that. Oopsie. It worked, but it didn't fully work all the way because they bullied me more aggressively. And that's when I ended up going to the principal about it. The principal did not even do anything about it.
Mhm.
And until one day my mom showed up. My mom kept showing up. Like she didn't even care. Like she's like, the bullying to stop. Then I will stop coming to the school.
Mhm.
And so that is how I overcome the bully. And I learned that sometimes people are not happy with themselves at a
Mhm.
young age. And I
Mhm.
realized that sometimes you just have to keep going.
Right. Yeah. And then so tell me, once you went to the normal school, the hearing school, and then afterwards you went to, I would assume you just pursued the hearing, like the normal, I put normal kids, but the standard educational process, right? And that's with the school and then the university and then afterwards. So how did you come to this um, place in your life where you've decided that you want to be a coach or, like, and to help others, especially with anxiety?
I would say it all started when I was working at a big park at Canada's Wonderland. I met a little boy and he approached me and I was like, are you lost? Because it's a big park. And he's like, no, like I wear hearing aids. Am I here within a ponytail? And I totally forgot what's in a ponytail because I'm working.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, like I'm deaf. We had a small talk. His mom came over. His mom was full of joy and she's like, oh my God, like you're deaf too. And I'm like, and I was so confused looking at the mom, like, yeah. And then she was like, no, like you're the first deaf person I see in the hearing community. It's very rare to see it.
Okay.
I was like, oh my God. And she's like, since you did something like that, you just made a change in my son's world. That you just showed my son that he's not different from anybody else.
I love that.
So right there, I knew, and it's true what the parents were saying because when I grew up, it was the exact same thing. I never met anyone in the hair school, and never did I. No, and that's when I realized when I got older, especially going to university, college, the same thing. And I think, you know what? Maybe I could be the first person to help my deaf community to advocate for themselves and
Mhm.
help them to get them out of the box and help them advocate for themselves in the hearing community.
Right. Right. And then so what motivates you other than making an impact on the deaf community? And I think, I'll call it normalizing, right? The fact that some people have hearing difficulty or challenges, right? So what really motivates you? Like that story would absolutely drive me and my purpose. And so, wanted to better understand what motivates you every day to go and do what it is that you're doing.
What motivates me is my grandma and my godfather because they both passed away.
Mhm.
My grandma was the one that actually got me to build my self-esteem just because my mom was a young mom. My grandma had to take a lot of responsibility,
Mhm.
and she had to step up a lot. So unfortunately, my grandmother passed away 2 years ago. But I'm doing this because she was like my why, and she always told me like, you may be different just because you are deaf, but that doesn't mean you can achieve far in life. And
Mhm.
my grandma was actually an immigrant grandma.
Mhm.
So we all know your immigrant grandma would tell you, do you want to fly back home? You want to live the back home lifestyle? So that is why I'm doing that. And because I know my grandma's looking over me every day.
Mhm.
And she's definitely my motivation.
Mhm.
And same thing with my godfather. My godfather was literally my first bigger father. He taught me how to drive, really. So those two are my motivation.
That's amazing. So one thing I want to touch on also is that this podcast really we look at the intersectionality of authenticity and success. And I see your success in terms of really learning to or really being stepping into who you are and being comfortable and confident and accepting the differences, right? As you have so eloquently stated with the stories that you shared about your grandmother and your mom and the challenges that you've experienced. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What do you see as your success in your story today?
I would say confident, be able to feel confident by saying I am deaf because I would not have the confidence because I don't have the confidence when I was young, like to say,
Mhm.
and I used to hide my hearing aid a lot 'cause I would always have my hair down.
Mm,
And so during my journey becoming successful, it's really improving myself and consistently feeling comfortable in my own shoes that I have a disability and that I
right.
do need some accommodation.
Right. And then so for those of our listeners who find themselves also being different for whatever reason, right? And who may struggle with their differences, what advice would you have to share with them?
My advice is that do not be afraid to use your words because you never know who is going to be impacted by you. And what I mean is that, for example, I was working at a warehouse and I'm very honest and open. I am deaf. I cannot hear you at the warehouse. Okay. My boss was very loud and clear when I said that. I am deaf.
Right.
Okay. So they knew what to do because I helped them, accommodated me. And then let you know, I didn't realize that they hired a next person that was deaf.
Oh, wow.
And they knew what to do because of me.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, look at that story. You never know who you're helping next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you never know. And trust me when I tell you, you're gonna feel so good. You'll be like, I know I should do more of this. I
Right.
should advocate more for myself. And
Yeah.
that is my advice I tell people is that you never know who you're gonna be helping next.
Right. Yeah, that's an amazing story. I mean, and did you ever meet the new person that they hired and
Yeah, of course.
shared with them like, "Hey, this is because
Yeah.
of me," and I had helped them initially, and they must have been so grateful too.
They really were. They never felt so comfortable in the
Mhm.
job atmosphere
That's
because
amazing.
in jobs nowadays, they're not accommodating. They're not very aware what to do.
Yeah.
Um, so he felt really welcome a lot. And he's like, oh my God. And then he's like, is it because of you? And I said, yeah, because of
That's
me.
amazing. And so and you bring up a good point because I don't think, when in this day and age, diversity, equity, and inclusion is such a hot topic, right? But I think it tends to focus on different things. Like it tends to focus more about our ethnicity and our race rather than other types of differences. For example, like, physical challenges that we may experience or difference in terms of our background, right? And our beliefs. And so, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions for those individuals who are hard of hearing?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I would say that one, there's a lot of I would say, but I'm gonna break down to the two main ones. So that way I don't overwhelm
Let's pick the top ones. And if you can go 3 to 5, I don't mind. But I'd love to hear, like I'm sure there are, I'm sure a lot of corporate employers out there probably hesitate to hire, right, people with disabilities because of the fact that they're not really sure what to do in that situation, right? And I think that we're in such a litigious situation, in a litigious environment, that I think there's almost a fear of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, etc. So I would love to hear from you. What are the biggest misconceptions, and then what are the biggest solutions, right? Like, let's throw that out there too. What can corporations or other employers do to help others who have challenges?
I would say the first thing is don't be afraid to ask questions, right? The more questions you ask, the more you understand. That's one. And also two, people don't realize when you ask a person subject about what their needs are, we
Mhm.
are appreciating that you even asking us because you really care about our needs.
Right.
And I want people to know that. Second, um, don't think that everybody have the same needs. And I feel like some people get that confused a
Yeah.
lot of times.
Right.
Like for deaf myself, I am deaf. I do not know sign language. People quickly assume I do sign language, and I said, no, I do not. I don't. Don't do that. So everybody needs are different, and I want to really put it out there because it's very important that you guys ask questions, especially if you don't know what it is. Please do not be afraid. And I keep telling people that do not be afraid. And and I tell people, the more you ask, do not watch social media. I feel like that is another big issue. People go on the website, like, okay, how do no, don't do that. Just
Right.
ask the person.
Right.
Everybody's needs are different. So that is my top, what I would say.
I love that. And then so what are the things that like what are the accommodations? Like for the example, the last job that you had mentioned, right? So like what are the accommodations that would be helpful for employers who have deaf employees in the workforce?
I would say due to COVID, the max, because we're heavy on lip reading.
Mhm.
So if you guys do not have the clear max at your workplace, always try your best to see how are they hearing,
Right.
right? And so like for me, for example, I go to work, my manager would tell me like on a piece of paper, like where I'm going on the map.
Mm.
So that
Okay.
way, oh, you're going here. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. Then I go off,
Right.
And
Right.
for example, if I say there's a big meeting or anything like that, they will have a like a documentation like of saying what was said in the meeting. So
Mhm.
that way I can fill out the form and think, okay, like Kalina heard what we said in the meeting. So
Mhm.
time to time, like I'll listen to the meeting, but I would miss few things. And so yes, so that's what I would say. Like if you need their attention, just one, clear max, very accessible. Two, write it down a piece of paper for them so they can see it.
Mhm.
We are a visual person. We need to
Right.
see things on a paper.
Right. And then so those are such great tips too. And what was it that I want? There was something that I was wanting to ask you, and then now I forgot. That's it. Tell me about your book. What are you writing about? Because when you first introduced it in the beginning, you're sharing your personal story, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about your book and how and what motivated you to write this book.
So okay, so what made me write this book is because there are actually no deaf books. If you notice,
Oh, interesting.
when you read a book, is it from a deaf person? No.
Yeah.
So that's why I write my first book. And two, the reason what motivate me is I want to make not just an impact for the deaf community, but also impact for the hearing community to understand what it's like to be deaf in the hearing community. So that
Mhm.
way, hearing community have a better understanding of what it's like to be deaf. Oh, okay, this person is deaf or hard of hearing. I know what to do because I read Kalina's book. Kalina told us what to say and what
Yeah.
not to do. So
Right.
that is why I'm writing my book.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. And so, when do you anticipate being able to release the book?
And my goal is to get it done by May.
Okay. That's great. So you'll have to come back and let us know once it becomes available to the public when, more about the book and then also how things are going for you.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely come back.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Kalina, I'd love, you do such amazing work and, you do so much in terms of like kind of different variety of coaching, right? In terms of you coach individuals, but it sounds almost like you coach the companies who will hire, people who are hard of hearing or who may be deaf and or who are deaf, not maybe deaf, but who are deaf. And then so I'd love for you to share with the community how they can find you. Like, where can they find Kellina Powell?
Everybody can find me on Facebook, Kellina Powell. Everybody can find me on my website, which is KellinaEmpowerment.com. Instagram, you can find me on Instagram, which is Deaf Queen Boss. And yeah, so that's where you guys can find me.
Awesome. And then we will include links to all three and the show notes, so that for anyone who wants to learn more about Kellina, who wants to hear Kellina's story, they can absolutely reach out to you. It has been such an honor to have you on the show, and to have you just join and share your story with us. And so thank you so much, Kellina, for your time today. And sorry, a little tickle in my throat. So for those of you who have also enjoyed learning and being part of this journey and learning more about Kellina Powell's story, please like and also rate this 5 stars. And for anybody who would resonate, or who thinks, like their friends or colleagues or peers or anybody out there can resonate with this story, please share, because the more people that we can impact, the better the world can be. And so that is why we are here today. So thank you again, Kellina, and we will talk to you soon. Let us know when the book is ready.